that Urjit Patel may offer to resign if the government does invoke the Section 7 of the RBI Act to transfer reserves. That is what we're picking up from our sources. And the fact that the RBI Governor Patel is learned to have conveyed his displeasure to the government. That is what the 18 Hour sources are indicating. He's also learned to have told the government not to raid RBI reserves, quote unquote. In fact, shortly we will also have Supriya Srine joining in to tell us exactly what her sources are indicating, and the fact that the government is keen on a bureaucrat as next RBI governor if Patel were to resign. Supriya, I mean, this is an ugly spat getting into an ugly battle, dirty linen being washed out there in the public. What is the worst case scenario? I believe that you're picking up from your sources that Urjit Patel may actually offer to resign.
So if Section 7 of the RBI Act is invoked, which actually the government can direct the RBI to transfer reserves, then Urjit Patel has offered to resign. There is no official confirmation just yet that he will resign or he's decided to resign. If only and only Section 7 is invoked. And my sources are telling me Section 7 has not been invoked just yet. The government doesn't want to go for the juggler. They don't want to go all out and get Section 7 invoked. They've asked the RBI to transfer reserves if that wants, and the government is extremely unhappy that the RBI has remained stubborn in not doing so. So only in the sequence of events, if Section 7 is invoked, has Urjit Patel offered or is likely to offer to resign. What my sources are also telling me at this stage is that if he were to go, the government is very keen that the next RBI governor and the man at the top job at India's central bank should be a bureaucrat. He brings some amount of continuity to policy making. He builds a bridge between monetary and fiscal policy. And this whole experiment of having an economist, first as Raghuram Rajan as RBI governor and now as Urjit Patel, hasn't really served the RBI very well. And they believe bureaucrats do a better, more balanced job. And that's top sources in the government who are telling me this. In the eventuality it were to happen, they will perhaps go to a tried-tested formula, have a bureaucrat in place. But all of this is still in the realm of speculation because Section 7, I'm told, has not been invoked just yet. But if it were to happen, Urjit Patel has told the government in no uncertain terms, it's going to happen over his resignation.
So, Supriya, all the speculation which has been going on in the market and again on WhatsApp that Section 7 has been invoked, your sources are telling you that Section 7 has not been invoked and governor has simply offered to resign if this section is invoked. So there's a difference in offer to resign and likely to resign.
Yeah, absolutely. So what my sources are telling me is that the government is extremely upset with the RBI as far as the liquidity measures are concerned. What my sources are also telling me, and this is something that we've been talking on ET now about, which is that there is a huge tug of war as far as the RBI's board is now concerned. In fact, the last board meeting I'm given to understand was a very unceremonious one where people like S. Gurumurthy and the RBI board had a huge tug of war on liquidity enhancing, boosting measures. The RBI so far has said that the liquidity in the system is adequate. The government and some of the board representatives like S. Gurumurthy, who represents the MSMEs and NBFCs, believe there needs to be a special provision made as far as the small, medium enterprises is concerned. And that is where there is this huge tug of war. Especially the speech by Viral Acharya was a big giveaway of how things are between the RBI and government right now. It's not a cozy relationship. But having said that, there is no official or unofficial confirmation that Urjit Patel has offered to resign. He's told the government that if Section 7 is invoked, which essentially talks about transfer of reserves, he will then offer to resign. He has not tendered his resignation just yet. I'm saying that very categorically.
Having said that, Supriya, just stepping back a bit because you have your ear to the ground. It's almost about 6 to 7 months, a little over that, to go for elections. And do you think the government can afford this sort of to and fro, this sort of a spat, a public, display of acrimony, so to speak, between the two entities at this juncture? And then I'm just working with the scenario that if Section 7 is invoked and the sequence of events play out as your sources indicate, how would that serve the government well in terms of perception?
So there is no denying that this public spat should not happen. In an ideal world, there should be no war or no battle between the RBI and the government. It will also add to this whole narrative of institutions imploding. So you are absolutely right there that 5 months before general elections, at a time when the external environment is extremely uncertain, there should not be a battlefront open with the RBI, and the RBI should be also extremely responsible with the choice of words that they make. I mean, Viral Acharya's speech, while perhaps was a war cry on independence and autonomy, used some very harsh language, used some very harsh words, and the job of the central bank is also to bring about sanity. But having said that, it will feed into the narrative of institutions imploding, something that the government can ill afford. But I also believe if they don't have the reserves, it will be very, very difficult for the government to meet the fiscal deficit target. I wonder what will be a tougher choice, to breach fiscal deficit targets and, stare at an impending downgrade, or to let an RBI governor go, invoke Section 7 and get some extra money from the RBI. Successive governors in the past, whether it's Subba Rao or Bimal Jalan or Raghuram Rajan, have all said, even Rakesh Mohan, somebody who is known to be close to the present establishment, has written a series of articles saying RBI reserves must not be raided. These are reserves that you have for a rainy day, or when your currency is in free fall, you turn to these reserves. Of course, the debate can go on how much reserves are good enough and all of that, but the reality is that ideally the government and RBI should not be at war path. There have been differences in the past, but nothing has come to a scenario where the RBI governor threatens to quit if Section 7 has been invoked. Section 7 has not been invoked even in dire circumstances. So in an ideal world, it should not be done, but we don't live in an ideal world. We live in a world where institutions are imploding, and this is perhaps going to be adding to the narrative if it were to happen.
Yeah, but
But Supriya, we know which way the government may be leaning. I mean, if you were to hear just what Finance Minister Arun Jaitley was saying yesterday on the sidelines of the conference, I mean, while he did not say anything about the discord with RBI, but he did say that there is NPA stress in the situation. It seems that, the government is sort of blaming the RBI with regards to this liquidity constraint that the system is facing right now. Do you think we're leaning towards a situation where perhaps Section 7 could be invoked, and that would mean that Urjit Patel does step down?
I know for a fact that the government is very keen to get reserves. I mean, I'm putting my neck out on this one and saying, yes, the government wants to and is very keen to invoke Section 7 if the RBI doesn't do it willingly. The government wants to and has set its sights on those reserves. People in the PMO, people in Finance Ministry believe that these reserves should be legitimately transferred to the government. Now, you can have a very different opinion on this entire matter, should it or should it not, but the government is very keen to do so. My own sense is that the government would want to do it with consensus. They would not want to take on yet another institution publicly, and not an institution like the RBI. Remember one thing, unlike an institution like the CBI or the Supreme Court, where the views are very ephemeral and very broken, RBI has impeccable reputation. It was considered one of the best central banks in the world. You cannot be on war path with RBI because it is just going to have consequences of a very different kind. People have a lot of faith in the RBI, in our own central bank. There have been people with impeccable reputation who've led it. So I don't know if the government can take that chance, but if your question is, do they want that reserve? Do they want that extra liquidity? Absolutely, they do. And in fact, I've been asked by people in the Finance Ministry, what is this whole autonomy RBI going to do if we will not get those reserves? Those should legitimately come to us. This is a difficult situation. We need to meet the fiscal deficit. So I think it's really a choice between getting those reserves and not getting them. The RBI in the past has been pliable. The RBI played along as far as demonetization was concerned, even though it was an executive decision. It was the monetary authority. It has been criticized tooth and nail ever since. I don't know if RBI can be seen pliable if their reserves have to be taken away forcibly as well. I think there's been a significant damage to its reputation during demonetization, and which is why you see the voices of concern, which is why you see a speech like Viral Acharya's speech. There have been 4 instances of flashpoints between the government and RBI. It's not just reserves. On supervision of public sector banks, on a payments regulator where the RBI has given a dissent note. The February 12th circular where the government wanted a dilution, the RBI did not. It all ended in the Supreme Court. So the flashpoints are many. But as far as reserves are concerned, the RBI believe it's non-negotiable, that it should be transferred. The government is very certain it should be.
Yeah, thanks a lot. As of now, what we've learned, what we've heard, and what Supriya has picked up from our sources is that Section 7 has not been invoked, and the governor has offered, threatened, or indicated that he would be resigned if the Section 7 is invoked. But Section 7 has not been invoked. Look, there's a flashpoint between RBI and the government, we all know that. But this time, I guess it's reached a slightly higher proportion. Historically, central bankers and North Bloc, they've always had disagreements on interest rates and other various factors. But this time, I guess it's reaching a point where it's just getting slightly uneasy for both of them. I hope there's an agreement which is reached. The last thing you want in this kind of a macro situation where liquidity crunch is there, NBFCs are in a serious turn, that you have leadership crisis in Reserve Bank of India. But that's the way it is. Reserve Bank of India governor as of now has only offered to resign. He has not resigned, which is what has been spread across and various WhatsApp groups. Let's take a break. When we come back, US markets have made a comeback. Crude is down, and yesterday we did see a recovery in some of the pharma and some of the key mid-cap names. More on that when we come back.